The hall did not echo so much as listen. Sound arrived, hesitated, and then seemed to decide whether it deserved to exist. Dorian Vance stood among the captives with his hands laced behind his neck, because the guards preferred it that way, and because after 3 months on Velantho's prime he had learned that arguing with preference-based weaponry was bad for one's lifespan. The Queen's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. It was not loud at first. It didn't need to be. It pressed instead, like gravity adjusting itself. The translators embedded behind Dorian's ear warmed uncomfortably as her words resolved into something human tongues could survive. The saboteur will step forward. A pause followed, long enough for Dorian to wonder if silence itself was being charged rent. If not, she continued, the fleet burns the colony clean, efficient, final. Someone near Dorian whimpered. Someone else laughed nervously, the kind of laugh that usually ended with an apology and a bruise. Dorian didn't look at them. He was too busy watching the Queen's ears. They were long, elegant, angled back in a way that didn't match the rest of her stillness. They twitched, sharp and precise, like instruments detecting a frequency everyone else was missing. That, oddly, was what bothered him. He had seen anger before. Human anger tended to spill. This was contained, compressed, and just slightly cracked. A guard's weapon hummed as it adjusted power levels. Another guard's armor chimed softly, apparently offended by the humidity. Somewhere behind Dorian, a child sniffed, then tried very hard not to do it again. Dorian sighed. It wasn't heroic. It wasn't noble. It was the sigh of a man who knew exactly how badly this could go and did it anyway. He stepped forward. The floor felt colder with each step, as if the hall noticed him now and disapproved. His boots made a sound far too loud for comfort. He briefly considered tripping, just to break the tension, but decided that face-planting before an alien monarch famous for orbital bombardment might send the wrong message. "I'm not the saboteur," he said, because it seemed important to start there. A ripple went through the guards. Weapons rose. Targeting lights brushed across his chest, his head, his left knee. Dorian hoped they weren't sentimental about kneecaps. The Queen looked at him, really looked. Her gaze was sharp enough that Dorian felt briefly audited. "You step forward to die for another," she said. "I step forward to stop you from making a mistake," Dorian replied. He winced internally. That had come out braver than intended, or stupider, often the same thing. Her ears twitched again. "You accuse me of error." "I accuse you of not wanting this," he said, and then, because silence was dangerous, added, "Also, if you blow up the colony, you'll never find out who actually broke your system, which means they'll do it again. Possibly worse. I'd hate for that to become a pattern." A pause, a long one. Somewhere, a living vine shifted, shedding a dim pulse of light. Dorian became acutely aware of a faint buzzing near his wrist. He glanced down. "Oh, that's not good," he muttered. The restraint band had decided his heart rate qualified as suspicious enthusiasm and was tightening in response. The Queen raised a hand. Everything stopped. Weapons lowered. The band loosened, sulking. She descended 1 step from the throne. Just one. It felt significant in ways Dorian didn't have the vocabulary for. "You fear," she said. "Constantly," Dorian said. "It's sort of my brand." A few guards made sounds that might have been amusement. One of them quickly coughed and looked at the ceiling. The Queen studied him, her expression unreadable, her ears less so. They angled forward now, attentive, curious despite themselves. "You are human," she said. "I've checked," Dorian replied, "multiple times." Another pause, this one different, less sharp. "You will be taken," she said at last, "not for execution." "That's my favorite kind of taken," Dorian said, then grimaced. "I mean, relatively speaking." Hands seized his arms, firm but not rough. As they led him away, he caught a glimpse of the crowd. Fear, yes, confusion, and something else. Hope, thin and dangerous. As he passed beneath the Queen, she spoke again, quietly this time, meant only for him. "If you are lying," she said, "you will wish you had stayed silent." Dorian met her eyes. "If I'm telling the truth," he said, "you might have to rethink a few things. Fair warning." Her ears flicked once, sharp and involuntary. Dorian smiled despite himself. It was going to be a very strange day. They moved him quickly, which Dorian appreciated. Being marched slowly usually meant time for regrets to warm up. The guards said nothing. Their armor murmured to itself, occasionally clicking as if gossiping about him. He tried not to listen. Valanthian equipment had a habit of responding when acknowledged, and the last thing he needed was a hallway deciding he looked flammable. The restraint band slid from his wrists as they entered a smaller chamber. The door sealed behind them with a sound that suggested finality but stopped short of promising death. That felt encouraging. "Am I allowed to sit?" Dorian asked. "Or is this one of those stand-until-you-confess rooms?" One guard tilted their head. Another glanced at a wall that pulsed once, then produced a bench from the floor. It rose like it had been embarrassed to be late. "Very hospitable," Dorian said, sitting. 5 stars. No complimentary snacks, though. The guards left. The door did not reopen immediately. Dorian counted breaths, then stopped because the room began counting with him, which felt intrusive. When the Queen entered, there was no announcement. She was simply there, and the room seemed to adjust around that fact. Dorian stood, then hesitated, then half-sat again. "Sorry," he said. "I don't know the protocol." "There is none," she said. "Sit." He did. "You said you are not the saboteur," she said. "Still true," Dorian replied. "I haven't sabotaged anything today. Yesterday either. I did accidentally reroute a waste conduit once, but that was more of a sanitation misunderstanding." Her ears angled sideways. Not angry, evaluating. "You understand the gravity of the accusation." "I understand gravity," Dorian said. "It's been very consistent here." A flicker crossed her expression, not quite a smile. More like the idea of one passing through customs. She activated something embedded in the floor. A field shimmered, then settled. Dorian felt a gentle pressure behind his eyes, like a headache considering a career change. "Truth resonance," she said. "It will respond if you lie." "Good," Dorian said. "I've always wanted a second opinion." "State your name." "Dorian Vance." The field remained calm. "Your function in the colony." "Fixer, engineer. Occasional negotiator with machines that hate me." Still calm. "You stepped forward knowing you might die." "Yes." A ripple passed through the field, then steadied. "Why?" Dorian leaned back. "Because you were going to do something you regret. And because the real saboteur was counting on fear to keep everyone quiet. Also because a kid looked at me like I was supposed to do something, and I panicked." The field pulsed, warm and steady. The Queen was silent for a long moment. Her ears dipped slightly, then corrected themselves. "You speak recklessly," she said. "I practice," Dorian replied. "Low stakes, usually." She deactivated the field. The pressure vanished, leaving him oddly disappointed. "There was sabotage," she said. "A core system failed. It required intimate access." "Which the prisoners don't have," Dorian said. "We can barely access hot water. Yet you repair our machinery." "When it breaks in front of me," he said. "I don't get schematics, I get vibes." Her ears twitched sharply at that. "You mock," she said. "I cope," Dorian said. "It's different." She regarded him, then turned slightly, addressing the air. The room responded by projecting a sequence of symbols. Dorian squinted. "That's your drive harmonics," he said before thinking. "They're oscillating out of phase." "Silence, you recognize this," she said. "I recognize a headache," Dorian replied. "Your system is overcorrecting. Someone probably nudged the feedback loop, just enough to look like wear." Her gaze sharpened. "You are certain?" "I'm annoyingly confident," he said. "Which is new for me." She dismissed the projection. The room dimmed. "If you are correct," she said, "the threat comes from within my fleet." "Yeah," Dorian said. "I was afraid of that." "You should be," she replied. They sat in that shared discomfort. It felt strangely balanced. "You spared the colony," Dorian said quietly. "For now," she said. "That wasn't nothing," he said. Her ears shifted, slower this time, thoughtful. "You amuse me," she said. "That is not a defense." "Didn't say it was," Dorian replied. Just a warning. Another pause. This one felt less like a weapon. You will assist, she said. You will speak when asked. You will not attempt escape. I don't even know where I am, Dorian said. Escaping would be rude. She turned to leave, then stopped. If you are wrong, she said, you will die. Dorian nodded. Fair. If you are right, she said, the consequences will be worse. She left. Dorian sat alone, listening to the room breathe. Still, he muttered, better than standing in the crowd. Dorian learned very quickly that time behaved differently when it was offended by your presence. Minutes stretched, folded, and occasionally seemed to walk backward out of spite. The room adjusted itself every so often, lights shifting, air pressure changing like it was trying new personalities. He suspected it was monitoring him. He suspected it was judging him. Well, he said to no one, I've definitely been in worse waiting rooms. The wall pulsed once. He took that as disagreement. When the door opened again, it was not the queen who entered but three figures who moved with the unsettling coordination of people who had rehearsed this moment too many times. One carried a hovering lattice of light that hummed softly, like a cat deciding whether it wanted attention. Dorian straightened. If this is another truth thing, I should warn you, I'm running low on lies anyway. They did not respond. The lattice drifted closer, unfolding itself until it surrounded his head without touching him. His translator warmed again, then cooled abruptly. A voice spoke inside his skull, smoother than sound. Identify anomalous cognition. Oh good, Dorian said. It's internal now. He felt a tug, not painful, more like someone rifling through a junk drawer of half-remembered equations and bad jokes. Images surfaced. Wires, panels, a child's face. The queen's ears flicking with restrained tension. The lattice hummed, then dimmed. No fabrication detected, the voice said. Thank you, Dorian replied. I worked very hard on my authenticity. The figures withdrew without ceremony. The room returned to its previous state of quiet hostility. Later, or maybe sooner, the queen returned. You passed, she said. I've always been good at tests I didn't study for, Dorian replied. She regarded him for a moment, then gestured. The room shifted, opening a section of the floor that rose into a platform. Symbols shimmered across it, reorganizing themselves like nervous thoughts. You will explain, she said. Happy to, Dorian said, standing. Though fair warning, my explanations tend to wander. She did not sit. She never seemed to need to. He stepped closer to the platform, pointing. Your harmonics don't just regulate propulsion, he said. They regulate trust, between ships, between systems. Someone introduced noise into that trust, small enough to look natural. You imply intent, she said. I imply someone very patient, Dorian replied, and very sure you'd react exactly the way you did. Her ears snapped back sharp. They wanted blood, she said. They wanted permission, Dorian corrected, from you. Silence settled between them, heavy but no longer sharp. You should hate me, she said suddenly. Dorian blinked. I barely know you. You stand between me and annihilation, she said. That is not neutrality. I stand between you and a bad decision, he said gently. That's different. Her gaze lingered on him longer than before. The room's lights flickered, responding to something unspoken. You are afraid, she said. Constantly, Dorian replied. But not of you. Her ears angled forward again, betraying surprise. Then what? She asked. Of what happens if you stop listening, he said. She turned away, pacing a short distance. The platform dimmed. My fleet fractures, she said. My counsel lies, my enemies wait. And you're supposed to be perfect, Dorian said. No pressure. That earned him a sound from her that might have been a laugh, if laughter had been re-engineered for efficiency. You make light, she said. I make survival, he replied. She faced him again. You will accompany me, she said. You will observe. You will speak only when necessary. Dorian nodded. I'm very good at unnecessary speech too, but I'll try. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. If you betray me, she said, there will be no mercy. If I don't, he said, you might have to trust someone. Her ears twitched just once. That, she said, may be worse. An alarm chimed softly, somewhere distant and insistent. The room shifted again, doors opening. Looks like the plot's thickening, Dorian said. She glanced at him. You do not understand the danger. I understand enough, he said. And I understand you don't want to be alone in it. She hesitated, then moved past him. Then keep up, human, she said. Dorian followed, smiling faintly. See, he muttered, this is how it starts. They moved through the inner corridors at a pace that suggested urgency without panic, which Dorian had learned was the most dangerous kind. The walls adjusted their geometry as they passed, opening routes that hadn't existed a moment before. He tried not to stare, failed, then decided the walls were probably used to it. So, he said, breaking the silence, is this the part where I'm sworn to secrecy, implanted with something itchy, or both? Queen Cyrenith did not slow. You will not be implanted. Great start, Dorian said. I had a rash once from alien tech, very personal experience. Her ears flicked back, then forward again, a rhythm he was beginning to recognize as restrained irritation wrestling with amusement. They reached a chamber that immediately made his translator spike, then settle, as if embarrassed by how much was happening at once. The floor awakened under their feet, lines of light racing ahead like they were late for an appointment. A circular structure rose at the center, responding to Cyrenith's presence before she acknowledged it. This is where decisions are traced, she said. Not made, revealed. Comforting, Dorian replied. I hate surprises. She gestured, and the structure unfolded, revealing shifting data that reacted not just to touch, but proximity, intent, and apparently mood. Dorian leaned in despite himself. That's not a map, he said. That's probability behavior. You see patterns quickly, she said. I've had practice, he replied. Life's mostly pattern recognition with occasional screaming. As if offended, a small hovering construct detached from the structure and drifted toward him. It emitted a warning tone that sounded suspiciously smug. Oh no, Dorian said. That one's judging me. Do not provoke it, Cyrenith said. I didn't, he replied. It started it. The construct pulsed, then zipped closer, scanning him. Dorian froze. If I get dissolved, he said, please tell the colony I died heroically and not because I made eye contact. The construct paused, then emitted a softer tone and drifted away. Cyrenith's ears twitched sharply. It found you non-threatening, she said. Dorian smiled. Story of my life. They focused on the data. As Cyrenith interacted with it, the structure reacted by projecting branching outcomes. Dorian watched one path split repeatedly, each divergence growing darker. That one, he said quietly. Yes, she replied, civil fracture. And that one's you choosing force, he said. See how everything narrows afterward. Her hands stilled. You speak as if I have alternatives, she said. You do, Dorian said. They're just harder. An alert chimed. Another presence entered the chamber, moving with confidence that bordered on entitlement. Cyrenith stiffened. My queen, the newcomer said, we were concerned. I am aware, Cyrenith replied. Her ears angled outward, not welcoming, not hostile, guarded. The structure reacted to the new arrival, probabilities shifting subtly. Dorian felt it more than saw it. Funny, he said. Every time someone says they're concerned, something destabilizes. The newcomer's gaze snapped to him. And this is, they asked. The reason you're nervous, Dorian replied cheerfully. A beat of silence. Cyrenith's ears flicked once, quick and sharp. That will be all, she said. The newcomer hesitated, then withdrew. The moment they were gone, the structure's projections eased, colors shifting toward stability. Well, Dorian said, that answers a few questions. You accuse a member of my council, Cyrenith said. I accuse the math, he replied. It doesn't like them. She studied the fading projections. For the first time since he had met her, her composure cracked just slightly. They are family, she said. Yeah, Dorian said softly. That tracks. The chamber dimmed as Cyrenith dismissed the structure. She stood very still. If I act, she said, I ignite conflict. If you don't, Dorian replied. Someone else will on their terms. She turned to him. You should not be here, she said. I know, he replied, but you brought me anyway. A long pause. You make this worse, she said. Also better, he countered. I'm versatile. Her ears twitched slower now. Stay, she said, for now. Dorian nodded. Wasn't planning on leaving. The exits keep moving. An alarm sounded again, closer this time. Cyrenith straightened, resolve settling back into place. Come, she said. You will see how truth reacts when confronted. Dorian followed, muttering under his breath. Every time I try to stay out of galactic politics. The alarm did not scream. It sang. That was the first problem. Dorian followed Cyrenith into a corridor that clearly disagreed with the noise, panels shivering as the sound threaded through them. The melody looped every few seconds, polite and ceremonial, as if warning of imminent disaster was simply a matter of tradition. That's not a drill, Dorian said. That's a ritual. Yes, Cyrenith replied. Which means someone planned this. Of course they did, he said. Spontaneous betrayal is very inefficient. They entered a transit chamber, and the floor unfolded beneath them, forming a moving platform that launched forward with a smoothness that made Dorian briefly regret every human vehicle he had ever complained about. The song continued. Should I know the words? Dorian asked. You should be silent, Cyrenith said. Statistically unlikely, he replied. She did not correct him. As they moved deeper, the ship around them shifted states, bulkheads sealed. Lights dimmed, then brightened in a pattern that made Dorian's head itch. That's coordination, he said. Multiple systems aligning. Yes, she said. They are forcing a conclave. During an alarm, he said, bold. Desperate, she replied. The platform slowed. Voices echoed ahead, overlapping in agitation. When they arrived, the space was already crowded with figures arranged in a rough semicircle. At the center stood the same council member from before, posture rigid, confidence stretched thin. My queen, they said, you honor us. I was summoned, Cyrenith replied, her ears angled outward, controlled, cold. Explain. The humans destabilized the fleet, the council member said. The solution is clear. Dorian leaned toward Cyrenith. Let me guess, fire solves it. The council member's gaze snapped to him again. This creature should not be here, they said. I've been upgraded to complication, Dorian replied. It's a promotion. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Systems overhead adjusted, projecting tactical overlays that made the space feel smaller. You have authorization, the council member continued. The fleet is aligned. That was when the song grew louder. Everyone froze. Dorian blinked. Is this still part of the betrayal, or did we hit the wrong playlist? Cyrenith's expression hardened. Ceremonial lock, she said. Ancient protocol. The systems responded, lights shifting to a softer spectrum. Weapons powered down against their will. A voice filled the chamber, old and resonant, reciting words no one seemed eager to hear. Dorian winced. You're telling me there's a mandatory listening period? Yes, Cyrenith said, for reflection. Well, Dorian said, that's unfortunate timing. The council member stiffened, fury barely contained. This delays nothing, they said. It delays everything, Dorian replied, which is often enough. As the hymn continued, Dorian stepped forward, hands raised. While we're all being reflective, he said, can I point out something interesting? No one stopped him. The protocol would not allow interruption. The sabotage wasn't about humans, he continued. It was about forcing this moment, about cornering the queen into proving she's ruthless enough to deserve her throne. Cyrenith's ears twitched sharply. You accuse us again, the council member said. I accuse your math, Dorian said, and your timing. The hymn ended. Silence crashed back in, heavier than before. Weapons tried to power up. They failed. Cyrenith stepped forward. You invoked my authority, she said. You aligned the fleet without consensus. For the good of the Empire, the council member said. For your certainty, she replied. Guards moved, this time toward the council member. Chaos followed, contained but violent. Dorian ducked behind a console that immediately tried to authenticate him. "Not now," he muttered. The fight ended faster than he expected. The systems, once freed from interference, corrected themselves with brutal efficiency. The council member was restrained, fury giving way to disbelief. "You will fracture everything," they said. Sirenith stood over them, calm and terrible. "You already did," she replied. She turned to Dorian. "The colony," she said. "Safe," he replied. "For now, you'll need to say it publicly." She nodded. The chamber began to empty, systems settled, the ship exhaled. Dorian leaned back against the console. "Well," he said, "that went better than expected." Sirenith regarded him. "You endangered yourself," she said. "Yeah," he replied, "but you didn't burn anyone." Her ears shifted, slow and deliberate. "This changes nothing," she said. "It changes everything," he replied, "just not all at once." For a moment neither spoke. Then Sirenith said quietly, "You should be afraid." Dorian smiled, tired but sincere. "I am," he said, "but I think I'm on the right side of it." The announcement did not come as a roar. That surprised everyone. Dorian stood where he had first stepped forward, though the hall no longer felt like a mouth waiting to close. Systems hummed at lower intensity, as if the structure itself had decided to unclench. The captives were still there, but they were standing differently now, straighter, louder in their silence. Queen Sirenith spoke, and the translators did not rush her words. They unfolded calmly, deliberately. "The colony will stand," she said. "There will be no cleansing, no punishment for crimes not proven." A ripple went through the crowd. Someone laughed in disbelief. Someone else cried. Dorian exhaled slowly, only then realizing he'd been holding his breath for days. "And," Sirenith continued, "those responsible for the sabotage have been identified. They will face judgment according to our oldest laws." Her ears angled outward, steady and visible to all. Not rage, not triumph, resolve. Dorian leaned toward the nearest guard. "You're taking this remarkably well." The guard glanced at him. "We prefer not exploding." "Relatable," Dorian said. The hall shifted again, opening pathways, dispersing tension like heat venting from a machine pushed too hard. The captives were escorted away, gently this time. Dorian remained. "That's usually when I get shoved somewhere," he said quietly. Sirenith turned to him. "You will not." "Good," he replied. "I've had enough shoving for one lifetime." They moved to a smaller chamber, quieter, less ceremonial. The doors sealed behind them, but the sound was softer now, less final. "You could leave," she said. Dorian blinked. "That's new." "You have served your purpose," she continued. "The colony will require liaisons, repairs, time." "And you," he said. "And I will rule," she replied, differently. He studied her ears, the way they rested now, no longer twitching at every unseen threat. "You're going to lose people," he said. "Yes." "Power," he added. "Yes." "Sleep." She hesitated. "Probably." He smiled faintly. "Welcome to the club." A pause settled between them, not heavy, earned. "They will not trust you," she said. "Not fully, not ever." "Good," Dorian replied. "Keeps me honest." She regarded him. "You could have stayed silent." "I know," he said. "Turns out I didn't want to." That answer lingered. Later, much later, Dorian found himself in a workspace overlooking the colony. Tools waited where he left them. Machines hummed with familiar problems. A small device blinked, requesting authorization. He authorized it. A message came through, brief and precise. "You are appointed intermediary, temporary, indefinite," Dorian groaned. "That's the worst kind of temporary." The device chimed, cheerful. Across the city, Sirenith stood alone beneath the fractured dome. The sun dipped low, light scattering in unfamiliar patterns. She listened to the fleet recalibrate, felt the Empire resist, adapt, strain. For the first time in a long while, she did not silence the uncertainty. Dorian looked out over the colony, hands on the railing, feeling older in a way that didn't ache. "Well," he said to no one, "guess I didn't die." The city lights flickered in response, as if agreeing. Somewhere between human and alien, between fear and choice, something new had begun. and for once it did not need to roar.